Hello, Math 1 students. Today we're going to take a look at one of the air test prep practice questions here. We're going to talk through this question, a little bit of how we're going to use the system here and just some of the tools that you're going to use in here. And most specifically, we're going to look at the calculator that is available to you on this air test. Now, when you take this here in the spring, this will be the first time that you'll be taking one of these air tests. So we want to make sure that you are familiar with the format and how you're going to actually be responding to these questions. So this question here, this was actually from a previous air test. So these are very similar to types of questions that you yourself could see. This one asks, a system of inequalities is shown. We have y greater than or equal to 5 and y less than or equal to 2/3 x plus 3. It says use the add arrow tool to graph the boundary lines of the system. Place a star on the coordinate plane to show one solution to the system. Okay, so you've looked at these types of questions already this year. We've graphed lines, we've graphed inequalities, and we've also graphed systems of inequalities. Now, in class, when you did that, typically you did the inequalities by shading, and you would do multiple. You would decide for one line, what side of the line do I need to shade? And then for my second line, what side of the line do I need to shade? And then we would look for where do those areas overlap to be able to tell us what our solution to that system would be. Okay? Well, our first thing that we want to start off with here, okay, before we actually get into the calculator, is we want to graph these two inequalities on our coordinate grid. And we need to note that it tells us to use the add arrow tool here, okay? Because we have a few different options. We have delete, we have add point, and we have add arrow. And they do exactly what they say. Delete will delete something. If you put a point or an arrow on there that you didn't intend to, you can use the delete tool to get rid of it. Add point will only add a point for you, but add arrow will actually allow us to add that line, okay? So y greater than or equal to 5, right? We know that is a horizontal line where y is always 5. So I'm going to click add arrow, come up here to where y is equal to 5, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line with my add arrow tool. All right, for my second one here, we have a slope of 2/3 and a y-intercept of +3. So start at my origin, I'll go up to my y-intercept of 3. That'll be my first point I'll put on there. All right, and then a slope of 2/3. Let's rise over run. So that's rise 2, right 3. And just to make my line a little bigger from here, I'm going to go up another 2 and then right 1, 2, 3. And this makes it a little easier for me to see all of my 4 areas here where potentially my solution set lies. We have this area up here. We have the area down here, kind of bottom left. We have this bottom right area. And then we kind of have this upper right area. But we need to determine where we need to put this arrow. Where is the solution to this system of linear inequalities here? Okay. So here's where our calculator is going to come into play. So if we click calculator up here in the top right, the calculator that is available to us here is actually the Desmos calculator. And some of you may have used Desmos calculator before. You may have seen it in your classroom. You may have used it for some other activities that you did there. Okay? But today we're going to use this to graph these same two inequalities using this calculator. And this is going to help show us where our solution area is going to be. Okay? So the first one we need to graph, and if you can kind of view them through the top here, great. Not, you might need to write them down on separate paper first. That's fine. So our first one was y greater than or equal to, so just clicking that sign there, and 5, okay? Go ahead and hit enter down here, bottom right of that calculator, and that graphed that inequality for us. It's pretty small right now. We'll see, we'll make it a little bigger here. We'll get rid of some of this other stuff once we enter our second inequality. Our second one, we have y again, now less than or equal to 2/3. There's no fraction button in Desmos. We just use the division. So 2 divided by 3, that gives us our 2/3. Now, pretty important here, that x, so this is 2/3 times x. If I just type x right now, I'm still in the denominator of my fraction. That's not what I want. So I'm going to delete to get rid of that. I need to hit this right arrow here, just below functions, so that I'm no longer in my fraction. Now we can place the x and then r plus 3. Okay, again, I'll go ahead and hit the enter just to make sure that I put that whole thing in there. And then if I go and hit this double left arrow up here, hide list, it'll get rid of that so I can just get a better view of my screen. And I can click anywhere I want on here and drag, and it'll move this around so I can view all the different areas to see what's going on here. Now, if we view this, okay, we can see the red is shaded above here, the blue is shaded down below that one, and where they overlap is in this area right here. So if I come back to my graph, the area where they overlapped was in this area here. So I'll grab my star. I will drag it over anywhere in this area here because it just says place the star on the coordinate plane to show one solution to the system. Well, anywhere in this area is a solution, so we could place it anywhere we want in this area here. That seemed to be the easiest for me. And that's how we can use the Desmos calculator that is included in here to help us solve these types of problems.